So my name is Raya Mutarak. I'm part of the organizer of this conference, and we would start with the opening, a lot of speeches for many people. I wish I could say something about this hall, but it's my first time as well. So Wolfgang Lutz's gonna say something, because we all, I'm sure that all of you are very impressed about how stunning this place is. And also for us, actually, we do the Wittgenstein Center Conference every year, and since COVID 2020, this is the first year that we are able to do it again in person and hybrid. So this is the first time also that we do hybrid conference. So I would like to start with inviting Professor Wolfgang Lutz, who has many affiliations, so I keep it short. So he's a founding director of the Wittgenstein Center and also the head of Department of Demography at the University of Vienna, and many more. So Wolfgang's going to say something about the Wittgenstein Center, about the department, and about something also about the research around population and environment. So I would like to start with Wolfgang then, yeah.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It's good to have a conference really in person. Well, it's still of the about 500 people who registered for this Wittgenstein Center conference. I hear that 150 will be attending in person, so some more people will come in during this session or during the afternoon. So I can welcome you on behalf of the Wittgenstein Center, which is a collaboration between three institutions. The one is the Austrian Academy of Sciences, which just celebrated its 175th anniversary, and it has an Institute of Demography, the VID, Vienna Institute of Demography, and Alexia will soon say a few words about this. I was just asked also to tell a few words about this magnificent room that you are in. This was really part of the old university before, and that was part of the Jesuit college right next door here. And this was built in the 18th century by renowned Italian architects. And in particular, the ceiling here really gives the four sciences of the time. So it has theology, the divine matters here on the right-hand side. It has law here on the left-hand side, on this side. In the back, you see art. And what we would call science today is just one of the four. This is causarum investigatio. So this is investigation of causal relationships. That's what science is all about. By the way, this nice ceiling, I was told it sometime in the 19th century burned down after the birthday party of an academy president. They still had candles, many candles at the time, and evidently some of these candles fell down, but they beautifully restored it thereafter. The second pillar is IIASA, the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, where I have been head of the World Population Program for 25 years, and it's now then followed by Raya Mutarak, and now followed by Anne Goujon, who will also say a few words about IIASA. And I will come back when I talk about the history of this topic. And the third is a very new institution, the Vienna University, which is a very old institution, founded already in the 1400s. Just 3 years ago, finally established a separate department of demography. So it's a separate unit in the social science faculty with equal status to the sociology department or the political science department or other social sciences. It's still a very small department, and we already have a doctoral program. Currently we have 12 doctoral students, PhD students involved, also part of the Vienna Doctoral School in Social Sciences, and we now have the second year of a new English language master's program on global demography. You also have Eric Striesnik is currently the head of this department, and Eva Bourgeois is also a tenure-track professor there. So these are the sort of the three institutions who together built the Wittgenstein Center. The Wittgenstein Center is not a separate legal entity, but it has been established on the basis of the Wittgenstein Prize. That's where the name comes from. The Wittgenstein Prize is the highest Austrian science prize, which is given every year to one scientist, comes with significant research funding, And when I was fortunate to win this prize in 2010, I had indicated that if I would win it, I would use this money to bring together the three demography groups in the Vienna area to form a critical mass of international demography, but also with this view to global human capital, so the application of demographic methods to human capital research. And now we start this conference on a topic that these days is, I think, quite popular. You also see it on the number of submissions that we received and a high number of participants, both online and in person. This whole idea of population growth and the environment goes back to Malthus, where he was more concerned about the food supply. But then one important date was 1972. This was not only the year when IASA was established, we just celebrated the 50th birthday of IASA, but it was also when the Limits to Growth by the Club of Rome were published that saw a population reaching a peak and then collapsing due to very high mortality rates resulting from a resource crisis, hunger, but also pollution. So this was the time, this was the first sort of systems analytical global model that really inspired much of the discussion, still in a very sort of Malthusian spirit that disaster was looming, and it was primarily feeding the people that was the key issue. And then it went on in 92, there was the Rio conference where population was also a prominent issue. Followed then at the time also climate change came up as a prominent issue. They had the Framework Convention of Climate Change, which is now the basis for all the COPs that you have every year and that you hear so much about in the media, most recently in Sharm el-Sheikh. That all originated from the 92 conference, where we also actually, I was attending there, we had some sessions on population and environmental change. And shortly before that, the Brundtland report in '87 was published that for the first time put the notion of sustainable development on the table as a compromise between the economic development agenda and the environmental agenda, putting them together. And as you know, then the sustainable development goals then resulted on this. IASA was very early on. We had in 2001 publishing this, to my knowledge, is the first book. It's called Population and Climate Change by Cambridge University Press, published by Brian O'Neill, who unfortunately cannot be here today, Lennis McKellar, who you will hear speaking later today, and myself. And actually then there was a IASA program called Population and Climate Change led by Brian O'Neill and also Levin Zhang, who will give a keynote in this conference, and Jonali Pachauri, who is also going to be here. They were also working in this program. So IASA has a long history there. Also in 2001, there was a global science panel on population and sustainable development, which was co-sponsored by UNFPA and also Maurice Strong. Maurice Strong was the man behind the Rio summit. He sort of was Mr. Environment in the UN system. And Nafis Sadiq, who sort of misses population in the population community, they both co-chaired this. And we came out with a statement of this global science panel on the notion of demographic differential vulnerability. And this really has been sort of a start of a new concern, that we not only look at population as being the ones who cause climate change through our emissions, but it is also the vulnerability to already unavoidable climate change, and the notion that not everybody is being equally affected, not everybody even in a specific location, but even in one location where there may be the same hazard through to disasters. The vulnerability differs greatly by demographic variables. And this has really sort of triggered also much more research interest. And I think today, of course, much more than 20 years ago, the topic of climate change is present not only in the media, but also in the scientific community. So in this respect, we have now come up to a state where actually demographers finally also start to get interested into this topic. I should mention that we had a big survey of the forces that shape future demographic trends around the world as a basis of our big Oxford University Press book on future population trends in the 21st century that the survey was taken in exactly 10 years ago. And there, most demographers, the overwhelming majority, more than 500 demographers participating in this survey, thought that climate will not have any significant impacts on future mortality nor on future fertility, possibly a little on migration, but they were not so specific about this. I think today our awareness has changed, and then Raya and others will follow up now saying what is the current state of discussion. Okay, again, welcome here and looking forward to an interesting conference. Thank you.
I would like to welcome Anne Gujong, the Program Director of Population Just Societies at YASA.
Thank you very much. Also, welcome from my side, representing here the Population and Just Societies program at YASA. Thanks for putting together such a rich program. I'm really very look forward to listening to all of you. This conference resonates very much with the work that we do at YASA in the Population and Just Societies program, probably because many of the organizers are from the YASA group. And I will highlight here just a few examples of what we're doing. One of the most well-known perhaps is that for many years we've been developing these population projections by educational attainment that Wolfgang was also referring to, and following these shared socioeconomic pathways that now enter the work of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. These projections have been widely used, and we will soon have a new revision coming out, and a further revision is planned, where for that we will launch a new survey, and Wolfgang talked about the older survey, but we will launch a new survey with jointly with the European Commission Joint Research Center and the United Nations to see what are the driving force on future demographic trends, and for sure climate change this time will be part of it. We also, in the PopJust program, look how climate change relates to well-being, and we've had some studies that have been showing, for instance, looking at voting behavior, and I can refer to you to an article that was published by Raya, Roman, Hoffman, Jonas Peisker, and some others in Nature Climate Change in 2022, looking how it could influence the voting behavior and the voting for the green voting behavior. A third area where PopJust is very active and very related to climate change is a theme, is how estimating migration and mobility in relation to climate change, and how demography relates to exposure, vulnerability, adaptive capacity of the societies to climate change. And the fourth strand of research, which is maybe not so well covered in this conference, but is very important as well, is looking at the transformative changes that are needed and that should be equitable and just, and how can we guarantee that. With this in mind, I think we are all looking forward to what you are going to present. As an end note, I would also like to make a small advertisement for a program that runs at YASA, which is called the Young Scientist Summer Program. It's something that runs every year, where we welcome PhD students who are typically in their second or third year to one program and integrate them. So if you have a student that would be interested to join the YSSP, please talk to me or talk to Roman Hoffman, who is here representative for the PopJust program. That's all for me. I wish you a happy conference. Thank you very much.
And another institute, which is another pillar of the Wittgenstein Center, so Alexia Prunskowert, who's outgoing actually director of the Vienna Institute of Demography, would say something about.
Many thanks to Raya, and also warmly welcome from my side. I'm standing here in a sense to introduce you to the third pillar of the Wittgenstein Center for Demography and Global Human Capital. It's the Vienna Institute of Demography. But let me start before even just telling you how it was made possible that we are all here together, and it's so wonderful to see so many again in presence. It's really our masterhead, it's Petra Schmutz from the administration with her team, and I'm not now mentioning all the names, but it's a team of about 5-6 people. It's exactly those people who are around here who answer all your questions and who answered all your questions beforehand, who arranged everything. Let me give a really big applause to our administration who made this possible here. And of course, the scientific program, it was Raya and her team, and many were involved in this, as you will see also during the next days. Now, let me get back, even before I talk a little bit about the Vienna Institute of Demography, let me tell you that we are a member, of course, of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. That's where we are today, and this is the festival hall of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. And it's wonderful that we could book this room for our conference. The first time in the history, I think, of VID that we have a conference being located in the center. And I think this shows the value the Austrian Academy of Sciences puts on demography, I think now and also in the past and hopefully in the future. So the Austrian Academy of Sciences, it's an old society, 1847. And it's basically, really, it's important to say, different to other learned societies, we have a strong research part. We have at the moment, it's about like 28 research institutes, and demography is one of the biggest institutes or the biggest institutes in the social sciences. We are really proud about this. So, and the Vienna Institute of Demography has also a long history. In fact, they're about like 3 more years, 2025, when we are 50 years old, like IASA already celebrated. But we were founded in 1975, and it was really, in a sense, when Wolfgang in 2002 took over the directorship, which we will celebrate today in the evening as well, where we became not just a player in Austria, but our institute was a European player, and now I would argue a global player in demography. So we are really expanding in terms of our sciences we are covering. And this brings me to the topic. I think this topic is so central also to the Vienna Institute of Demography. We basically have different research groups on fertility and family formation, on longevity and health, on population economics, on projection and forecasting, on migration and the environment. And I think the really important thing is a long time population was put into our climate change models as a driver, but not as a variable to be influenced by climate change itself. And I think it's really, also Raya who started to look at this reverse causality, and now many of our people at VID also look into mortality effects through climate change, but also fertility intentions, like Erich and others have investigated, are influenced by climate change. And last but not least, of course, as we have heard, migration patterns, and being myself an economist also, of course, nothing is a free lunch. If we want to tackle the climate change problem, we have to bring in the economy side as well. And this is extremely important. So we're looking forward to discuss these topics with you during the next 3 days. And let me just welcome all of you to this conference now. It should be insightful, it should be a stimulating conference, and it should be a thought-provoking conference. And this is our aim, which we want to reach in the next 3 days. Enjoy the conference, hopefully, and I'm pretty sure it will be a very productive conference. We will exchange many ideas, and Roma will talk about more about the Vienna Yearbook of Populations Research, where we would like to really put on the paper many of these thoughts which are discussed in the next 3 days. And as you all know, we have Christmas time in Vienna. Enjoy Vienna. There are a couple of really nice Christmas markets, but nevertheless, stay during the day with us at the conference. Welcome all of you, and we are extremely happy to have you with us, and also to all people online, and we have many people online. Welcome to all online participants, and we hope to see some of them in the discussion sections and also through chat when they're asking questions. Happy 3 days of a wonderful conference.
Let me use this opportunity also to introduce the organizing team. I can see Roman Hoffman here, Shanali Pachali, who behind the book, that Wolfgang Scholl, Andrea Tamburini, Jonas Pieska, Eric Stresnik, and myself, right? Yeah. Did I miss someone? No. So yeah, it looks like I'm the one doing the speaking because I think I'm almost the oldest. That's why I have to do more of the speaking. But otherwise, the merit also goes to all of them, and of course the administration team. So I just want to talk just a bit about the idea why this topic this year, why are we doing it? I think there's no need to emphasize that it's timely, the topic of climate change. This year alone, actually, this semester I teach the course on development and climate change, and every week I have new example to show to my students. Look at the flood in Pakistan. It has been shown that it is attributable to human-made climate change. The heat wave in Europe, the early heat wave in the UK, which I think it was estimated that 2,000 excess death due to heat wave, and the earlier heat wave in Pakistan again, and India in March, and then we had the hurricane in the US, wildfire. It's just full of examples, and actually many of these extreme events. So the climate scientists in the past 10 to 15 years have developed a field called climate risk attribution. So they have shown also with the world without the human carbon emissions, would this event would have been possible? So they pretty much have shown with statistical modeling, counterfactual framework, and showing that many of the events I have just mentioned is attributable to human-made climate change. So it's alarming, it's urgent. Both mitigation and adaptation are urgently needed. So that's kind of linked to the another timely thing that the conference would want to address. I think Wolfgang and Alexia and Anne already mentioned about the potential impact that climate change may have on demographic behavior. So that's kind of linked to my ERC project that want to look at, because we know that climate change affect life, well-being, affect health, and it can potentially also affect fertility, mortality, and migration. But up until now, you have heard about the projections, and you have heard about the 2 weeks ago, the world reached the milestone of 8 billion, and then the world population is projected, depending on who did the projection, to be maybe between 9 to 11 billion in the future. But all of these numbers haven't taken into account the potential impact that climate change may have on the demographic behavior. So the idea, I also, being a bit selfish, would like to collect also the information that we would learn from this conference, and also in the future collaboration, so to try to know what are the evidences out there on climate impact on fertility, climate impact on mortality, on migration, and how are we going to use this information to build into the future population projections. So that's the idea. And why defining the relationship of the 21st century? Wolfgang mentioned, and Alexia also mentioned, that in the past, in the 20 or so more years ago, we tend to look at the population impact on climate change. And I think I myself actually shy away a little bit from discussing about this topic. Like 2 weeks ago, of course, the journalists want to know what is the impact of the world of 8 billion on sustainability, on the environment. And it's quite, I found it very hard to try to find a kind of neutral way or scientifically based evidence to answer this question. So we thought of, actually on the second day, you may have seen in the program, that we would have the panel discussion on population and carbon emissions. And the idea, actually, I would like to thank the author as well. Actually, the authors, the panelists, they submitted the paper. Normally they would like to present their papers, but we kind of asked them, actually your papers really address this very heart of the debate on population impact, on carbon emissions, on the environment, and we would like them to, actually we would like you as well to contribute to this interactive discussion, because I myself find it quite difficult to address this topic, and I think it would be really interesting to hear your thought on this. And yeah, so we would like to make this conference also as a networking platform. If you see the names of people who are coming to participate, this is really, we have a lot of really the scientists or the population scientists who really work on this topic. So there, we have, I would like to introduce you to Elisabeth Futzel, for instance, who's the editor of the journal Population and Environment, is here with us. I think Catherine Grace, maybe here somewhere. I think she will be here. So she's also the chair of the Population and Environmental Network of the IUSSP. So the people, and then many more names that you may have heard or you may have read their work. So I think it's also, I would like you to use this opportunity also to talk to people that you may have maybe interested in their work. And also, yeah, so I would like this conference to be also the sort of the human capital investment, because we, even though, so I started this work about 10 years ago and pretty much in isolation, and now I see more and more younger people, also not younger people, but also interested to work on this topic, but we don't have enough still the expertise of people who know how to handle the climate data or know about the topic or interested in the topic. And it's really on a high demand. Actually, I need to use this platform so to advertise, because we always get asked to do some kind of a report or consultancy work. The UNFPA is currently looking for someone who can work on the impact of climate change on population and development in Asia-Pacific countries. So if you're interested, please come to me, because they really asked me to advertise it in this platform. And there are a lot more. So I want the online people and the people here to probably you may feel some passions also on this topic. And if you're starting working on it now in a 5 years time, then we have more and more people. And it's going to be that, sadly, climate change is going to stay with us for a long time. So it's going to be the topic that would need the population expertise here. I mentioned many things, and another thing that this conference is linked. It's also the new panel of the IUSSP, called the International Union for Scientific Studies of Population, that I just established, that we're going to look at the impact of climate change and conflict on population dynamics. So we thought that it's not enough to look at some kind of shocks like the pandemic or climate change and the impact that it may have on population in isolation. We know that the current conflict, for instance, have implications on the food crisis, the energy crisis, and it's probably combined also with the climate change, and the pandemic also contributed to food insecurity. So it's not, we shouldn't look at all of these events in isolation. So you would see more of activities that coming out also from this IUSSP panel. So this conference is kind of part sponsored by this IUSSP panel, but we also aim to provide more training also of how, if you would like to work on the topic related to conflict, climate change, link it with demographic data. So we want to build a capacity also on that. And of course, for the online people who you may not be able to join us this time, but there would be more conferences around this topic as well. So yeah, I think I have spoken enough of what I wanted to say. There are two more speakers who would give you more information about related to this conference. So I would like to invite Roman Hoffman. He's going to talk about the special issues in the Vienna Yearbook.
A warm welcome also from my side here to the conference and to the city of Vienna, to all participants who could join us on site here today. I would like to briefly speak about the Vienna Yearbook of Population Research and a special issue that we're currently preparing. Many of you may know that the Vienna Yearbook publishes each year one special issue related to a theme of one of the previous Wittgenstein Center conferences. And we are currently preparing the special issue that will focus on the theme of this conference, population and climate change. The special issue will be guest edited by Liliana Andriano, Marion Bauderon, Catherine Grace, Tobias Rüttenauer, and Erich Striesnik, and myself. And maybe if the guest editors could just briefly wave to the others so that everyone can see where you are and how you look like. So if you have any questions, also just feel free to approach us during the conference. We're happy to answer any questions or information that you need. We would like to very kindly invite you to consider submitting the papers that you will be presenting here during the conference to this yearbook, or any other work that is related to the theme of climate change and populations. We would like to cover in the yearbook really a broad range of different topics, also emphasizing, reflecting the diversity of the field, ranging from research on population trends and implications for sustainability, to the links between population, energy and greenhouse gas emissions, to the impacts of climate change on populations, for example, impacts on reproductive behavior, health or migration. There are several advantages for publishing in the Vienna yearbook. Of course, the first one being that you will reach an audience that is truly interested in population demographic topics, in our case in particular with the link to climate change issues, but there are more than that. We are also an open access, fully open access journal published by the Austrian Academy of Sciences. There are no article submission, processing and publication fees, so the publication is completely free in this journal, and you will get extensive editorial support throughout the submission process. So we will try to make sure that your submission is in a good shape when it goes out to reviews, and then of course also for publication. All submissions will be peer-reviewed in a rigorous way. And then what is also nice about the Vienna yearbook is that any accepted publication will go online immediately and is available online as well as in different scientific databases, including REPEC and JSTOR. And then we also print the publication in our nice yearbook, in the color format yearbook. And I brought you one version of those here with me. If you're interested, you can take a look at it later on. So we would like to invite you all to submit your papers if you're interested by 31st of March in the next year. And should you have any questions until then, you can either consult the Vienna yearbook website or write to one of the editors, either one of the managing editors, that would be here, for example, Maria Winkler-Dworak, who is also here with us today, there she sits, or one of the guest editors here. I just given you the emails of Erich and myself, who we are both based in Vienna, but of course also feel free to reach out to the other guest editors. And if you have any questions or would like to have more information during the conference here, we will be available, all the editors will be available tomorrow during the first coffee break for an on-site meeting downstairs. And on Friday, we will be available at the same time point online if there's any questions from the audience online. And that's all from my side, and I wish you all a good conference. Thank you.
Maybe running slightly late, but Sonia, who's chairing the next session, said we have plenty of time, so we have time for your speech, Andrea. So Andrea Tamburini would tell us more about the information about the conference, also the housekeeping, and yeah. Thanks, Andrea.
So thank you for coming, and welcome also from my side. Now you will get from me some additional, more practical information, housekeeping and so on. First of all, in the name of the whole organizing committee, thank you to all the participants. As it was already mentioned, we reached 560 participants from 67 countries. 150 of them are here in presence in Vienna. We got 118 submissions that now compose our program we have 3 keynote speakers, 23 talks, 25 posters, 16 in presence and 9 online. So please check also our YouTube channel to have a look at our online posters, and 1 panel discussion. For today, we start with session 1 about climate change and well-being. Until our first coffee break at 3, where we will also order food. Of course, low carbon emissions options are available. And this until the second session about climate change and mortality, which will start at 3:30, which is followed by a second coffee break until our first keynote speaker, Christy Ebai from the University of Washington, with title Climate Changes Health. Afterwards, please join us at 18:30 for the festive event to celebrate the 20 years of the Vienna Institute of Demography and the 12 years of the Wittgenstein Center, and for the short reception afterwards at 1930. Now some more practical informations. All the sessions and the speakers are going to speak in this room here, so in the Festivsaal, while all the breaks and the posters and the meetings with the editors is going to be downstairs in the room, the aula where you, maybe some of them came through to enter and where you picked up your badge. All the doors have probably a button next to them to open them, so if you are in the situation in which you are really struggling to open this door, there is probably a button next to it. For toilets, this kind of facilities, they are on this side of the Festivsaal, on the other side, and at the entrance, close to where you picked up your badge. And as a very last note, we are planning to video record the presentations and to, if you are okay with it, to put them online on our conference website. So let us know if this is okay for you so that all the material can be available for also the online participants and for whoever wants to have a look at that. And this is all from my side, and have a nice conference, and thank you again.